What's going on, everybody? Josh Pocock here, and in today's video I'm going to show you how you can set up GraphRAG on your desktop system. All right, we're going to show you how to set this GraphRAG system up. I'm going to go over also why GraphRAG is different than normal RAG, vector storage RAG, or whatever the case may be. If you're familiar with RAG, we've done a lot of RAG videos on this channel, but what is GraphRAG? If you're new to GraphRAG, we'll cover that, answer those questions, why you may use GraphRAG, what are the strengths of GraphRAG over normal RAG, and what are the weaknesses, right? We're going to dive into it, show you how to use it. Let's dive right in. All right, guys, so Microsoft released GraphRAG on July 2nd of this year. So all the links that I go over, like always, will be in the description down below, and I'll leave the commands too, so you guys can easily just follow along and make sure you guys get everything that I'm going to show you in this video implemented. But this is a research blog post by Microsoft. GraphRAG, new tool for complex data discovery, now on GitHub. All right, so it kind of goes into, advantages of community summaries for global questions, local questions, what's the difference, going over different responses and all that good stuff. I'm not going to go over that, but I'll leave it in the description down below. And they also have a great page right here on GitHub, microsoft.github.io/GraphRAG, where it goes over getting started with GraphRAG, all right, installing it, running it, querying GraphRAG, developing, indexing, architecture, data flow, all pretty much anything you could really think of when it comes to GraphRAG, they got it here. So I definitely recommend, as well as prompts, prompt tuning, I guess, and a bunch of different stuff. So I definitely recommend, if you're really trying to go in depth on GraphRAG, to check this out. And if you're new to GraphRAG, and maybe you're new to RAG, or you're new to whatever, this is definitely the next step in terms of like really, getting better at RAG, getting better with AI, learning more about different ways to query data and do RAG systems. So yeah, I'm excited that you're here and learning this. Either way, we're going to show you how to set it up. Also too, I'll leave a link down below to the archive research paper, and this goes in depth explaining like GraphRAG and source document to text chunk to element instances, element summaries, indexing time, community detection, then graph communities, community summaries, and then community answers, and then global answers. All right, so pipeline stage, chunk size, has different graphs. I'm just quickly skimming through some of this just to see if anything sticks out here, but like I said, I'll leave it down below. It's pretty in-depth when it comes to GraphRAG, and it's definitely a good read to take a look at some of it. Okay, and then also too, of course, I'll leave a link directly to the GitHub of Microsoft GraphRAG right here, where you can check it out. Now, you may be wondering, like, what is GraphRAG? Well, actually, this is actually a good question. I didn't even expect to have it right here, but I'll quickly read some of the FAQs. Maybe this will help. So GraphRAG is an AI-based content interpretation and search capability. Using LLMs, it parses data to create a knowledge graph and answer user questions about user-provided private data set. All right, what can GraphRAG do? GraphRAG is able to connect information across large volumes of information and use these connections to answer questions that are difficult or impossible to answer using keyword and vector-based search mechanisms. Building on the previous question, provides semi-technical high-level information on how the system offers functionality for various uses. This lets a system using GraphRAG to answer questions where the answers span many documents, as well as a thematic questions such as where are the top themes in this data set, right? So if you have so much data on all these different topics, there's going to be themes and like communities, what they say, and we'll get into kind of more of that, and you'll get a better picture if you're new to GraphRAG. But it essentially allows you to query it in a much better way for specific data types like that, right? Where semantic search, it's really just it's just trying to pinpoint a specific semantic relevance or similarity based on your query. It won't be able to detect like bigger overarching global themes or communities within your whole data set. All right, so that's what GraphRAG is kind of meant for. So what are GraphRag's intended use cases? Okay, like there's some good questions here. I'm not going to read through them all. I'll quickly read through some of these. So GraphRag is intended to support critical information discovery and analysis use cases where the information required to arrive at a useful insight spans many documents, is noisy, is mixed with mis and or disinformation, or when the question users aim to answer are more abstract or thematic than the underlying data can directly answer. GraphRag is designed to be used in settings where users are already trained on responsible analytic approaches and critical reasoning is expected. GraphRag is capable of providing high degrees of insight or on complex information topics. However, human analysis by domain experts of the answer is needed in order to verify and augment GraphRag's generated responses. And lastly, GraphRag is intended to be deployed and used with a domain-specific corpus of text data. GraphRag itself does not collect user anyways, blah blah blah. I mean, do we really know? I guess, yeah, it's open source. So anyways, made by Microsoft. But let's quickly just look at some diagrams here just to really shoot some of these points home. So regular vector rag right here, and then GraphRag. So just some kind of a graph here. So data structure, this is knowledge graphs. If you're familiar with knowledge graphs, you know, if you've used like what's that note-taking app, you know which one I'm talking. A lot of you probably know which one I'm talking about, where it shows like knowledge graphs, etc. But yeah, it uses knowledge graphs. Vector rag uses vector database. Focus, so this focuses on GraphRag focuses on entities, relationships, and context. Vector rag focuses on semantic similarity, thematic relevance, and retrieval speed. So GraphRag might be slower for complex queries, generally faster for larger data sets with vector rag. GraphRag has a few more steps, especially if you're using global search query, and scalability can be less scalable for very large knowledge graphs. And then vector rag, highly scalable for unstructured data. Deep understanding provides deeper insights through entity connections, and then limited understanding of relationships. And then the last image I got here is right here. So, but providing the model with an access to vast repository of factual knowledge using graph, the model can draw on this knowledge to generate responses that are more detailed and accurate. So sophisticated searches, GraphRag advantages, scalability, informative responses, accurate query understanding, explainability, and then relationships and context. All right, I'm just going to go over one more thing before I show you to get set up on it, and I will include timestamps through this video. So if you already know about GraphRag and you just want to show you know how to install it, etc., use it, you can maybe skip through, or you can just watch. We're about to get into it in just a second. But I did ask Perplexity just a few different things, and I want to go over some of them just to give you a little bit more understanding before we get into it. So I just said, please explain the difference between GraphRag and regular rag. I'm not going to read this all, but so a few similarities, GraphRag and normal rag aim to, okay, so we kind of should know about that. The differences, we kind of went over some of those in the last graph, but here's some more. So data structure, vector databases versus knowledge graphs, information retrieval based on semantic similarity for regular rag of text chunks, and then GraphRag leverages structured relationships and graphs, and then contextual understanding, so limited to top K similar chunks in regular rag, and then GraphRag can aggregate and summarize information across a data set. Complex query handling for regular rag struggles with multi-hop reasoning, and then GraphRag excels in that. And then, yeah, so pros and cons of regular rag: simplicity, efficiency. I'll also say, it says cost right here. So cost, it's way less expensive, especially GraphRag, depending on what model you're using, of course. You can use it with Llama, you can use it with OpenAI. I'm going to show you how to use it with Grok. That's another thing. I'm going to show you how to use it with Grok today, just because, yeah, I don't want to be spending like a bunch of money on my OpenAI just for, you know, using GraphRag. I'd rather use Grok, which is free with obviously limited queries and whatnot. And then explainability, and then GraphRag pros, context depth, complex query handling, and then cons, complexity and cost. And then I just wanted to quickly go over two forms of querying / searching in GraphRAG. So we got local search as well as global search. So local search in GraphRAG focuses on specific entities within the knowledge graph. It retrieves information by fanning out to the neighbors and associated concepts of the queried entity. And then use cases ideal for queries about specific entities such as names of people, places, or organizations, and suitable for detailed entity-specific information retrieval. So pros, it's precision, so provides highly relevant information about specific entities. Efficiency, so faster retrieval for entities, specific queries. And then cons, so scope, limited to immediate neighbor of the queried entity, which might miss broader context. And then we have global search, okay, where you're going based off communities and whatnot. So global search in GraphRAG leverages the hierarchical structure of knowledge graph to reason about holistic questions related to the data set. It uses community summaries to provide comprehensive answers. So that's what it really, so basically it leverages those community summaries. So you're going to get a more holistic view. And then use cases, so suitable for broad thematic queries that require aggregation of information across a data set, ideal for summarizing main themes or trends in large data sets. Pros, comprehensiveness, so provides detailed holistic answers. Contextuality, and then complexity is for the cons, and latency, and then of course actually no, the prices, that's for GraphRAG in general. And then just lastly, I'm just going to go through the exact process kind of step by step of GraphRAG, and then we're going to get right into it. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but so pre-processing and indexing, so text unit segmentation, the input corpus is divided into smaller text units, chunks, to facilitate detailed analysis. These units can be paragraphs, sentences, or other logical segments. So a lot of GraphRAG, like the step-by-step, is somewhat similar to regular RAG, and then there's that, it's mainly the communities. There we go. Entity and relationship extraction, so an external large language model like GPT-4, for example, is used to identify and extract entities, people, places, organizations, and their relationship from each text unit. These steps involve entity extraction, so identifying key entities within the text, relationship extraction, determining the relationships between these entities, and then the extracted entities and relationships are represented as nodes and edges in a knowledge graph. All right, hierarchical clustering, so using algorithms like lead-in technique, the initial knowledge graph is clustered into communities. These communities represent groups of entities that are densely connected. And then community summarization, summary generation. So summaries are generated for each community, capturing the main entities, their relationships, and key claims. This provides an overview of the dataset and useful contextual information for subsequent queries. And then retrieval and answer generation, so query mapping. Incoming queries are mapped to the most relevant context within the knowledge graph. This is done iteratively to ensure the best match. And then context augmentation, response generation. All right, I'm not going to read through the whole thing. It's kind of similar. And yeah, so just wanted to go over that. I know may have took a little bit of time, but I know some of you are new to GraphRAG, so I really wanted to give you a little bit of lesson there, just so you are on the same page now that we're going to actually set up GraphRAG on our system. So I'm just going to be using like this Romeo and Juliet text I just got from Gutenberg.org. This is the thing that we're going to be embedding into our GraphRAG, of course, but you can put your own data in, of course. All right, guys, so now we're going to install GraphRAG. So essentially what you're going to do is you're really just going to run this command, pip install GraphRAG. You can do this in your terminal or in VS Code. You may have to run it as administrator just to have the necessary permissions, but you're going to install it. Okay, once you do that, depending on if you're on Windows or Mac or Linux, if you're on Linux, you can do export GraphRAG API key, set the environment variable. But if you're on Windows, like I am right now, you're going to do setx GraphRAG _ API key like this, and then quotations, and then your API key. And this will be our grok key. Okay, like I said, you can use any. You could, like, if you're just using OpenAI, then you would put your API key here for OpenAI. But since I'm going to be using Grok for this, I'm going to put my Grok API key here. All right, then I'm also going to put my OpenAI API key right here, because Grok doesn't have embedding, so we're going to be using OpenAI for embedding. Okay, Now, what you're going to want to have in VS Code or whatever IDE you're using is you're going to want to open up a new folder. So I just created one for the sake of this video called GraphRAG. And all I did was I created a new folder called input right here. And then I added a .txt file just called Romeo and Juliet. And I just, as you can see here, I pasted in my text. It's about 5,600 lines of text. And it's written, I mean, it's new line, it's small text, like it's not the full entire line, just because it's like Romeo and Juliet. But anyways, once you do that, and like I said, these prompts are going to be in the description down below, so you can literally just copy and paste and follow along. You're going to run Python, so you need Python installed. That kind of goes without saying, but just make sure you have Python. You're going to run Python-m graphrag.index, and then --init to initialize, and then --root, and then space dot, right? And this basically just means the current folder you're in. So you're going to want to run this in that folder. All right. I actually just did that. So as you can see here, and it's going to start initializing. Okay. So once you do that, you'll see that like you got these new folders in here. So you got like the prompts, you got your environment environment here. So you could actually just add your environment variables here, but if you already exported them as environment variables in your system, then you don't need to do that. Okay, but you're gonna wanna go to your settings. Reason being is because we have to do some configurations, and you can do different configurations. I'm gonna show you how to configure it just the way I did, but you can do it differently as well as like you can, there's also a lot more stuff you can do here. You can see that there's different things here. So if you want certain things here, you could like remove them, like remove the hashtag right here. But anyways, so first off, you can see here we got API key, graphrag, type. So as since I'm using Grok, I got Mistral 8x7b 32768, just because that's the higher context model on Grok. And then the next thing is the API base. So if you're using Grok, like me, you put https api.grok.com/openai/v1, but you can also use Ollama with this. So yeah, you would just put your API base for Ollama or whatever the case is. If you're using OpenAI, you don't have to even do this. You could actually just keep it the same. And then tokens per minute, I put it to 2,800. Requests per minute, I put it to 28. Max retries, I put it to 3. Max retry wait, I put it to 13. And yeah, GraphRAG, like I said before, it can, like if you're using like OpenAI or something, it's going to use a lot of tokens. Just keep that in mind. So that's why we did some of these settings. And then embeddings, so we're going to want to, that's why, so you're going to want to change if you're using Grok and Grok for the tokens, and then OpenAI for the embeddings. You're going to want to change it. It would have said GraphRAG. You're going to want to change this to OpenAI API key, and that's why we exported both of those keys, or set both of those keys. All right, so you can see here we got the text embedding 3 small model, and then let's just see everything else. I pretty much left the same. I did put for summarization. No, I did put for, let's just see, community. Yeah, it's community. I changed this max length to 1,000 and max input length to 3,000. But you can see here we got a bunch of different options that you can potentially use or play around with if you know what you're doing or just learn about it. You can ask ChatGPT and kind of learn about these different things. But cluster graph, embed graph, UMap, snapshots, and I'll be doing more videos on GraphRAG and different variations of GraphRAG as well. So make sure to stay tuned, subscribe if you're new to the channel. We upload videos every single day on AI, automation, business growth, etc. Anyways, once you do that, we're going to go to our next command. So instead of running graphrag index init root, we're going to run graphrag index root dot, so without the init. Okay, so we already initialize it. Now we're going to actually index it at the root location, which is here. So we're running that now. GraphRAG, and I actually did encounter a couple issues, so I did make a few changes. I'll just let you guys know. And if you do encounter any issues, yeah, it's, you know, there's a lot of different configurations you can do. So you're gonna have to, maybe if you run into any issues, you may have to troubleshoot. but I'll go over what I did in just a second. But here I just want to show you it running. So we can see here I went through a bunch of different steps. So create base unit, base text units, ID chunk, different chunks, etc. Entity graph. So create base extracted entities, create summarized entities, create graph entity, create base entity graph, create final entities. So we can see different entities, the different names here, you know, type, so person, geo, you know, graph embedding, text unit IDs, description embedding. All right, you can see the different rows times columns, and then create final nodes. So we can see like title, person, description is the Prince of Verona, source ID, graph embedding, entity type, top level node ID. Create final communities. So we have the different communities, the relationship IDs, text unit IDs, join text units to entity IDs, create final relationships. So we got that. Join text units to relationship IDs, create final community reports, create final text units, and then create base documents, create final documents, etc. And you can see everything, all workflows completed successfully. So there you have it. Then you would have within your output, you would have the run that you use, the artifacts, and you can see all the different artifacts, create base documents, all these different ones that we looked at. You can see the stats, the reports, logs, etc. So if you do encounter any issues, check your reports and your logs and your index engine logs too sometimes. And basically what I did is, so I was encountering a couple different errors. The main thing I just honestly just decided, I just switched it out back to OpenAI API key. So you could keep GraphRAG and just put that as your OpenAI key and just only use that. But just because I already set my OpenAI key, I just changed it to that. I just changed it to GPT-4o just for simplicity, and then I just marked out these options because I didn't really need them. Because just based on like the amount of content I was giving, as well as the settings I had, I kept running into, I think, rate limits with Grok. You can try it though with Grok. You may or may not encounter the same issues. So if you don't, let me know, but it could be based on the plan you're on or etc. So I just personally so I just changed it to OpenAI for simplicity's sake. And yeah, everything else, I mean, you can mess with the chunk size if needed, overlap. But the main thing I did was just change it to OpenAI. And yeah, also too, guys, if you want me to do future videos showing like how to use this with old llama and local models, let me know in the comments down below. I definitely will be looking into doing that, just because, guys, like, if you're going to be actually using this on a consistent basis, it will, like I said, get pricey with OpenAI and like paying for it, because it is a lot more labor intensive than a normal RAG system. Okay, but anyways, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and do some queries. So I'm going to show you two query methods. The first is doing the global method. Now this is going to go based on the community summaries, include that, and then the local method. So like I said at the start, these two methods have different kind of strengths, and depending on what query you want to do. So for the global, since we're going to be referencing the community summaries, we're going to ask what theme is in the book. So to do that, you do python-m graphrag.query -root dot and then -- method global, and then in quotations what your query is. I'm going to run that. All right, guys, so one thing I would just want to point out is I actually did encounter just a quick error, just because I forgot the double dash for root, right? So it does require 2 dashes. So just to show you again, and all this will be in the description down below, but make sure you use 2 dashes like so for the root. Obviously I just messed that up, but anyways, as you can see here, check the settings and reading settings.yaml, and then success, global response, main themes, and book. So the rivalry between the Capulet and the Monaco families, and then the role of the prince in maintaining order, impact of the feud of Verona's citizens, and then influence of key family members, loyalty and aggression among servants, and then conclusion. All right, so pretty good. This is a lot better and a lot more able to, like, normal graph or normal RAG wouldn't be able to really pick up on that whole grand picture of things when you're querying it. So that is what we did with the global method. Now let's do a local method. So this will be based on a more pinpointed question, such as who is Romeo and what are his relationships. All right, so boom, we got our local search response. So Romeo and his relationships, Romeo's identity, Romeo's a central character in the community of Verona, known for his pivotal role in the unfolding drama. He is the son of Montague, one of the heads of the feuding families in Verona. And you even see references here, right? The family, and yeah, so key relationships, Benvolio, Mercutio, yeah, so you can see the relationships here, Balthazar, and all that good stuff. I haven't read Romeo since high school, but awesome. So yeah, there you have it, guys. I'll show you how to do a local query, a global query. We went over what GraphRAG is, why it's different than normal RAG, as well as how to actually set it up. Like I said, there's a bunch of different ways you can configure it. We can set up a local models, you can set it up many different ways, and you can use it in your applications. And yeah, this is really just the start. And there also is other different RAG ways of doing things that I will be covering in future videos. So yeah, I definitely think that this is just kind of a stepping stone. This is not the end all be all. There's still a lot of pros and cons to GraphRAG that I think, you know, in due time, some systems already do fix them or mitigate like costs and whatnot, but more and more, as just said with anything with AI, as it continues progressing, we're going to see a lot of these cons not be there anymore, right? As things get cheaper, more compute, etc. So anyways, guys, if you're new to the channel, we upload videos every day on AI, automation, growth, business growth. If you're an entrepreneur, AI enthusiast, developer, coder, business owner, marketing agency, coach, consultant, whatever the case may be, we have almost 400 videos on this channel right now, and we're uploading every day. We're not going to stop. So if you got some value here, make sure to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Really trying to grow things here. Got any value whatsoever, I definitely appreciate it. And other than that, guys, if you have any questions or issues, let me know in the comments down below. If you have any suggestions on future videos, if you want me to cover a specific topic, whatever the case may be, let me know. I want to engage with you guys as much as possible. You know, we're growing still, so I will be trying to see I probably will see most of the comments. So there is a good shot I will actually make, if it's a good idea, a video on that topic. So and then also too, guys, if you haven't already joined our Stride community, free group, free Discord, free Facebook group, link in the description down below. We have about 750, 800 members. You can network with myself as well as like-minded other entrepreneurs. And then also too, guys, if you haven't checked out my book, Client Acquisition Code, and you run a business, it's going to show you how to pack your calendar full with hot, warm, qualified appointments through many different methods, outbound prospecting, paid ads, etc. I have a full chapter on AI and prompt engineering. It's like very in-depth, no fluff. So definitely check that out. Link in the description down below, guys. Other than that, check out some of the other videos on the channel, subscribe, and I will see you in tomorrow's video, guys. Keep hustling, keep grinding, and of course, guys, accelerate your stride. Take care.